Every time Tom Cruise has returned for his role as Ethan Hunt in the Mission Impossible films, they've gotten better and better. And the latest in the series, Dead Reckoning Part 1, is no exception, delivering incredible action, beautiful locations, and a compelling story that keeps you hooked from the first frame to the last. In short, it is an incredible experience, tailor-made for the big screen, and it shows that the summer blockbuster is still very much alive and well, and that Tom Cruise may just be the last true movie star. But how is that possible, given not only the current age of streaming we're in, but more importantly, the narrative surrounding movies and entertainment? After all, as we've been told over and over and over again, it's the toxic fandom that has doomed the film industry. Well, the answer to this riddle can be found in the formula, which, while it shouldn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out, it did take a Scientologist. And for whatever reason, the rest of Hollywood, Disney, Netflix in particular, just haven't caught on. So let's take a look at Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning and examine the 5 key components of this winning formula for success. Starting at number 5, Dead Reckoning, and the rest of the Mission Impossible films for that matter, crafts an engaging story with a memorable and interesting MacGuffin. So before we get into this, for those of you who don't know what a MacGuffin is, the term was coined by the master of suspense himself, Alfred Hitchcock, and simply put, is an item that drives the plot and the characters into action. It can have little to no importance on the overall story, like the stack of money from Alfred Hitchcock's own Psycho, or the message carrying R2-D2, or it can be of vital importance, like the One Ring from Lord of the Rings. Now, there's some debate as to whether its importance should qualify it as a MacGuffin or a plot device, but we can pretty much all agree it's an item that pushes the characters into action. Like the plutonium core from Fallout or the evil goo from MI2, Dead Reckoning gives a memorable MacGuffin in the form of a 4-sided key that splits in half, with both halves needed to control the entity, the ominous, seemingly omnipresent villain of the film. While having a memorable, interesting MacGuffin might just seem like common sense, it flies in the face of the narrative that dismisses writing devices like that in favor of messaging and key jangling. Take Disney's latest as a prime example, where the Indiana Jones franchise previously, much like the Mission Impossible franchise, placed a high importance on their MacGuffins, now places no importance on them at all, and as a result leaves the film pretty forgettable. With the formula, writer-director Chris McQuarrie places a much higher importance on his key than Dial of Destiny ever did on its titular dial, cutting back to shots of its location as it changes hands, and making sure to keep it in frame during crucial scenes regardless of the shot, constantly reminding the audience not to forget about it, not unlike how Alfred Hitchcock would place special importance on his MacGuffins when photographing them, like in Dial M for Murder. The fourth part of the formula is the implementation and right casting of the Femme Fatale. In another classic film trope, this one originally stemming from film noir, the Mission Impossible films always include femme fatales, seductive, mysterious women who are as deadly as they are beautiful. The casting for a role like this is one that a film has to get right, requiring of the actress not only athleticism enough to be convincing in an action role, but also to have the charm and charisma that comes with the part. And the Mission Impossible films get this right every single time, with Dead Reckoning's casting being some of the best in the series. Between newcomers Haley Atwell, Pom Klementieff, and series veteran Rebecca Ferguson, they demolish the myth perpetuated by the narrative that toxic fandoms don't want to see or are afraid of strong female leads. Each one of these actresses takes on the femme fatale role and brings a unique aspect to that character. As a viewer, you'll find yourself intrigued by and eventually rooting for each one of them. The third part of the formula involves morally upright heroes with defined and necessary purposes to the story. The Mission Impossible films are centered around Ethan Hunt, and in the more recent entries, his team as well, and make sure to keep his role as hero, heroic. This doesn't mean he's perfect and flawless, quite the opposite actually. But he constantly strives to do what is right, and values the lives of others above his own, portraying a heroic character in the classic selfless sense. It's this attitude of the heroic figure that is in direct opposition to the narrative, which promotes self-centered, narcissistic versions of classic heroes that have no meaningful impact on the story. stating that their values are outdated and that they themselves should be updated for modern audiences. But with the Mission Impossible films, the formula shows just how wrong this is. The second part of the formula is providing stunning visuals that just aren't seen anywhere else, thanks to the fantastic cinematography of the films. Each of the films is unique, with different directors, all with their own unique styles, coming and going before Chris McQuarrie took over directing the franchise since Rogue Nation, which seems to be when the films really came into their own. Chris implements a classic style of filmmaking, favoring longer lenses for portraits and close-ups to give a very cinematic look with a shallow depth of field, and wider lenses for landscapes and action scenes to fully showcase the locations and the stunt work. He's conscious of adding depth to the shots through differences in lighting intensity and color, often separating his subjects from the background by manipulating these aspects. Take, for example, the club scene, where the background is kept at a very cool or more blue-looking color temperature, while the actors are kept at a warmer, more natural color temperature for their skin tones. In short, his main goal is to capture everything in as aesthetically pleasing a way as he can, which is refreshing, especially when compared to the amount of films that often utilize green screens and, more commonly now, the volume, disregarding classic composition techniques in favor of lazy, uninspired photography, and all too often no lighting except for when comes off of the volume. In Dead Reckoning, McQuarrie also gives some slight visual nods to the sort of Cold War thrillers that no doubt inspired this film, like his use of Dutch angles and long lens close-ups for quiet but intense conversational scenes. Lastly, the final and most crucial aspect of the formula, and the one that is in most opposition to the narrative, is respect. Respect for the fans, respect for the characters, for what the audiences not only wants but has come to expect from a franchise as part of their enjoyment of these films. When seemingly every other major franchise sets out to actively upset fans of their series, with the narrative claiming that toxic fans are the problem, Chris McQuarrie, Tom Cruise, and their Mission Impossible films take the opposite approach, knowing what the fans want and happily delivering it to them. They even include a message just for the audience before the film starts to show their gratitude to the audience for seeing their film. Well, my fellow movie nerds, that's all I've got for today. Remember to keep your lighting soft, your focus sharp, and I'll see you next time.
None of our lives can matter more than this mission.
I don't accept that.